So I know a lot of you are probably freaking out, thinking, I don't remember anything really grammar-wise from last year. Well, we're going to solve that problem with these videos, I'm hoping. I know that these are a very imperfect way of doing this, but it's the best thing that I know to do, and hopefully it will work out for you. Hopefully you can reference these videos throughout the entire school year if you need to. So we're going to start with, before we even talk about nouns, I want to run through some Latin sentences that you saw last year at the very beginning of the year. They are from stage 1. I think they're all fairly straightforward and easy. You guys will probably knock them out in a heartbeat. So, caecilius est pater. What's that mean? Think about it. And if you said caecilius is the father, you are correct. Obviously, we have two nouns there, caecilius and pater, right? Moving on, metella est mater. Well, that would be metella is the mother. Now, quintus est filius. It's a good little vocab review. Quintus is the what? Well, we had the father, the mother, and this is the son. Filius means son. How about this one? Clemens. Clemens est servus. Clemens est servus. Clemens is a slave. Grumio est coccus. That means Grumio is the cook. Everybody's favorite character from Latin 1, the fall down drunk, Grumio. Oh my gosh, look at this dog. This dog is in serious need of nutrition. You can see its ribs. It's kind of frightening. Cerberus est canis. Remember, A's are always like ah, so don't say canis because that just sounds awful. Cerberus est canis. Cerberus is the dog. Okay, so think about all these, think about the words that you're seeing that are nouns. Caecilius est in tablino. We have a different structure here. We've got some sort of a phrase here. Caecilius is, where is he? In the study. How about this one? Metella est in atrio. Metella is in the atrium. Quentus est in triclenio. Quentus is in the dining room by himself. Weird. And then Clemens est in horto. Clemens is in the garden. Think about horticulture. Grumio est in culina, as always. Grumio is in the kitchen. And Cerberus est in via. Cerberus is in the street. And then, oh boy, it just kind of keeps going, right? Pater est in tablino. The father is in the office, which we already know from earlier, but then check out this sentence. Pater in tablino scribit. The father is writing in the office. I know the temptation is to say the father is in the office writing, but don't split the verb like that, because what you've done in that second case is you've made a participle, and you don't know how to do that yet. So say the father is writing in the office. How about this one? Mater est in atrio. Mater in atrio sedet. The mother is in the atrium. The mother is sitting in the atrium. Filius est in triclenio. Filius in triclenio bibet. The son is in the dining room. The son is drinking in the dining room. Oh, I hope that's water. Servus est in horto. Servus in horto laborat. The slave is in the garden. The slave is working. Labor comes from this, in the garden. Don't let that plant get you down. Coccus est in culina. Coccus in culina laborat. The cook is in the kitchen. The cook is working in the kitchen. That is an extremely long spoon, and quite an evil glint in his eye, I must say. And then finally, canis est in via. Canis in via dormit. The dog is in the street. The dog is sleeping in the street. Okay, keep those in mind. Now we're going to take a look at nouns. Now please don't take offense. Please do not take offense at all when I ask you this, but I'm just going to, we have to start somewhere, right? And we may as well start from the very beginning, and we're going to start in English. So my first question to you is, what's a noun? And if we were in class, like all of you would be rolling your eyes, thinking, "Oh my God." But I guarantee you there'd be a few of you who'd be like, "Oh crap, I'm not really sure I know how to put it in words. So let's put it in words." What is a noun? Well, it is a word that essentially names a person, place, or thing. Or, as some people would say, idea. Okay, so that's what a noun is. Now let's think about sentences in English that use nouns. We're just going to take a look at a couple of quick examples. I'm just going to make these up on the fly here. Let's say Stephen hits the ball. Another one. Michelle is walking to the store. Let's give another one here. Mr. Allen gave... Oh, let's see here. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know any of you really that well, but I will get to know you very well in good time. Let's pick, Solomon. Mr. Allen gave Solomon a book. And then, let's just say this. The ball hit Stephen. And then finally, Solomon read Mr. Allen's book. Okay, so the first thing is, I want to know what are all the nouns. And I'm going to highlight the nouns in some random color, which I'm not really sure because I'm colorblind, which is a source of endless conversation, as I'm sure that we'll have it. I'm going to pick this one. I have no idea what that is. It looks promising, I guess. So look at the first sentence. What are my nouns here? What are the persons, places, things, or ideas? Well, we've got Stephen. He looks like a noun, and he is. And there's one more, and that would be ball. Okay? Let's look at the next one. Michelle is walking to the store. Well, we've got Michelle as a noun and store. Mr. Allen gave Solomon a book. Mr. Allen, Solomon, book. The ball hit Stephen. We got ball and Stephen. And then Solomon read Mr. Allen's book. So Mr. Allen and book are both nouns. So now it's complicated a little bit. Nouns obviously have different uses within a sentence. So let's talk about how are these nouns being used in these particular sentences. Well, probably the clearest thing you know about nouns is that nouns are always the subject of sentences, right? So we could probably say, without a doubt, that the first noun, I'm just going to put an S, is going to be the subject, right? Stephen, Michelle, Mr. Allen, the ball, and Solomon. Those are all subjects, right? Now, look at this first sentence. Stephen hits the ball. How is ball functioning? Clearly it's not the subject. What is it? Well, it is receiving the action of the verb, right? He's hitting this object here. Ooh, object. I like that. It's called the direct object, which I'm going to, I don't know why I'm drawing this. I should probably just type it. It'd be so much easier. Oh, boy. Let's see here. Undo that. Okay. Let's go back to text box. Okay. So direct object. That's my direct object is the ball. Look at the next one. Michelle is walking to the store. We know Michelle is the subject. Now, is store really the direct object here? Ooh, it's not. What is store in? It's in something called a prepositional phrase, to the store. And how is store acting here? It's acting, the official grammar term is object of a preposition, which I'll just abbreviate as prep. So we've got subject, direct object, object of a preposition. Now check this out. Mr. Allen gave Solomon a book. Oh, which one of these, Solomon versus book, is going to be the direct object? In other words, what is the object that is receiving the action of the verb? Well, if you think about it in that way, it would be Mr. Allen gave the book. So the book right here would be the direct object. So we can mark that as direct object. Okay, so we've got that there. Now, how is Solomon, though, being used in this sentence? I mean, clearly he's a noun. He's not the direct object. Well, he is being used as something called the indirect object. What is an indirect object? An indirect object is usually a person, someone that receives the direct object. So who gets the book? It's Solomon. He is the indirect object. So that's another way, a fourth way, that nouns can be used in English, right? As subjects, as direct objects, as indirect objects, and as objects of a preposition. Check out this next one. The ball hit Stephen. Well, ball is clearly the subject, and Stephen would be the, if you figured out direct object, you are correct. And then finally, look at this one. Solomon read Mr. Allen's book. Now, which one of these, Mr. Allen or book, happens to be the direct object? Well, he read what? He read the book. So that's receiving the action of the reading. That's the direct object. Now, what is Mr. Allen's here? Is it an indirect object? Not really, because it's not like Solomon is giving the book to me, right? So this is a fifth use of nouns in English. We've had subject, direct object, object of a preposition, indirect object, and then finally we have something called possessive. Okay, so those are the 5 main ways that nouns are used in English. Guess what? In Latin, there are 5 main ways to use nouns: subjects, direct objects, objects of prepositions, indirect objects, and as possession, or words showing possession. So here's the tricky thing about Latin versus English. Okay, I want you to take a look at this. Look at this first sentence. Stephen hits the ball. Stephen is the subject. Now look at this sentence down here. The ball hits Stephen. Stephen is now the direct object. Is there any difference in the way that Stephen is spelled between him being the subject and him being the direct object? The answer is no. Not in English. Look at this one. Mr. Allen gave Solomon a book. Solomon read Mr. Allen's book. Look at Solomon here. He's the indirect object. In the last sentence, he's the subject. Any difference in spelling? I think not. Not at all. But in Latin, here's the trick. In Latin, there will be a difference in spelling. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at some of the stage 2 words. We've got caecilius est in atrio, or sentences rather, as that means caecilius is in the atrium. Now check this out. Amicus caecilium salutat. Wait a minute. What's different here? What's different is the way that Caecilius's name is spelled. In the first sentence, how is he being used? He was clearly the subject of the sentence. But in the second sentence, amicus caecilium salutat, he's being used as the direct object. The friend is greeting Caecilius. So, check out the spelling of his name as subject versus direct object. Let's look at a few more. Metella est in atrio. Metella is in the atrium, as always. I don't know what else she does in the entire book. Now, amicus metellam salutat. Wow, this friend is really making the rounds here in the house. Amicus metellam salutat. The friend is greeting Metella. So check it out. Sentence number 3 here. Metella est in atrio. She's the subject. Metella is in the atrium. In sentence 4, though, she's the direct object. Notice the spelling change in her name. Metella versus metellam. Moving on. Quentus est in atrio. Quentus is in the atrium. Versus amicus quentum salutat. Gosh, he looks so uncomfortable, doesn't he? The friend greets Quentus. But notice how it's spelled quentum. His name is spelled with an M at the end when he's the direct object versus an S at the end when he is the subject. Let's just take a look at a few more. Servus est in atrio. That would be the slave is in the atrium. Versus amicus servum salutat. The friend is greeting the slave. Okay, so servus versus servum. And this goes on and on. The dog is in the atrium versus amicus canem salutat. So it goes from canis, subject, to canem, direct object. The friend is greeting the dog. So, looking back, here are those 5 ways that we use nouns, right? Now, in Latin, here's the tricky part, I guess. In Latin, the thing that we have to talk about is, remember how the nouns changed spellings, right? Depending on how they're used in a sentence, we have a word for that in Latin. It's called case. When I talk about the case of a noun, that means the way a noun is spelled, depending on how it is used in a sentence. The way a noun is spelled, depending on how it is used in a sentence. So, in Latin, what's called the nominative case is the way a noun is spelled when it's the subject of a sentence. And the accusative case is a way a noun is spelled when it is the direct object of a sentence. What you notice about nominatives and accusatives, by the way? Well, the difference is that the accusatives always end in the letter M, or at least right now. They always end in the letter M. Now, we're not going to get into this too much right now, but just to let you know, the other cases, in other words, the other ways that nouns are used, well, there was the indirect object, that's called the dative case. That's the way a noun is spelled in Latin when it's the indirect object. And then there's possessive, that's called the genitive case. That's the way nouns are spelled when they're showing possession. And then finally there's a case called the ablative, and that's often used for prepositional phrases. So Latin is called an inflected language, and what that means is that the words, the endings of the words change depending on how they are used in a sentence. Unlike English, where it doesn't really matter how they're used in a sentence, they're always going to be spelled the same way. So that's just kind of a review of what we mean by nominative case. That's the way a Latin noun is spelled when it's the subject of a sentence, versus the accusative case. That's the way a noun is spelled in Latin when it is the direct object. And for right now, those accusative words will always end in the letter M. So I hope that helps, and I'll see you next time.